Welcome to Tuesday Recap. It's so good to have you here with us today. And I'm here again with Mark, who on this Sunday had some level of participation with me as I was bringing forth the word.
Yep.
And we've been taking this journey on what it means to live as sons and daughters of the King. And as we've been moving through that journey, we have now started talking about what it is and applied to discipleship, and how God's way of discipling, God's way of raising up believers is to raise them up as sons and daughters. And so we talked about how every believer should have a spiritual father or mother walking ahead of them. They should have brothers and sisters walking with them. And they should have spiritual sons and daughters who are tucking in behind them, living in their wake, being discipled, being cared for. And how the process of discipleship is like family.
Right.
And so that's what we've been honing in on. And so as I spoke last Sunday, I said this Sunday I wanted to bring up one of our spiritual sons, and that was Mark today. So on Sunday we had Mark up, and Mark, we talked about three different things on Sunday that have, really impacted you in this journey. And the first one that you shared about, I think was pretty important because it's tied into one of my favorite themes, and that's the theme of grace.
Yes.
And so, Mark, could you just tell us about, and give a recap of what you shared on Sunday in the journey of grace as a son?
Well, growing up in the church, it was such a benefit. Both my parents were Christians. However, growing up in the church, it was salvation by faith, which was amazing, through Jesus Christ. But after that, the message I got was work really hard and earn as much as you can, and try to please God by your good behavior, and then you'll have your breakthrough, or you'll maybe have a better life, a better marriage. It's just all about how hard you work. But learning about spiritual sonship really learns that you're a son, not by how hard you work, but because you're born again by faith, you're adopted into a family. And so a big takeaway for me has been, I live from a position of grace now. I'm stopping the earn deserve gospel and switching it for a gospel of faith.
Yeah, I read it on Sunday, but if you don't mind me stealing your thunder, Mark sent me a list of things that this meant to him. And he said, I live from God's blessing and not for it.
Yeah.
Amen. He said, I live from purity, not trying to attain it. That's a huge one for people, isn't it?
Yeah.
I live from a position of love, not for it. We don't have to earn God's love. I live from abundance and not straining out of poverty. Mark, those are incredible testimonies.
Yeah. And all of those ones are very specific to my life. I'm sure everyone has their own story, but my wife and I, trying to get financial breakthrough, we kept trying to live, we just kept living in the land of just enough. And finally, by God's grace, we learned how to live in the land then more than enough, and trust that God already has made the provision through faith.
Amen.
Yeah.
Man, it's easy when you start thinking about it as a son. It's easier to see God as your provider, as a father.
My father already has done it, so we have to be generous receivers.
Absolutely, fantastic. Well, the second question that I asked Mark about on Sunday related to his gift as a pastor. And if you know Mark as a pastor's pastor. He just loves to love on people.
Coffee, people.
Absolutely. And so, but that got tested for him in COVID. And Mark, could you just tell us a little bit about what that was like for you, and how, processing that as a son helped you get through that whole experience?
Absolutely. During COVID, with all the different lockdowns, we were asked not to be with people. That's a huge problem for a pastor, and it's a huge problem for an extroverted pastor like me, because I energize by being with you, with people. And so here I am stuck at home. I'm concerned for all the people in the church, and yet I'm not allowed to visit you, hang out. And the inside of my soul was starting to break down.
Yeah.
I was starting to feel like, is this really the calling for me? Because there's too much pain, there's too much heartache. And I was trying to reach everybody, and yet I could reach no one almost. And so I came to Pastor Kevin and asked him for advice. How do you get through these painful seasons when you want to give your heart to everyone, but you just keep hitting walls, or you keep getting burned and hurt? So what was your counsel to me?
My counsel to Mark was what the Lord showed me many years ago, is that I'm called to love everyone. We love beyond knowledge. We're going to love everyone, but I can only invest in a few.
Yes.
And really, discipleship is about investment. And as you invest in a few, then they're empowered to invest in others.
That's right.
And so that was something that really helped you steer through that.
Yeah, so the practical side is, now when I make decisions, I know that I can love everyone, but I can only invest in those particular people that God has put in my life. So of course, my spouse, my biological children, those close to me, those are the ones that I spend my time investing in, so that we can replicate Jesus and
And Mark, you actually created circles of influence.
That's right.
Could you just explain that for a
Yeah,
quick second?
so what I do is every January I draw circles like a target, and I put me and Jesus in the center, because without him, obviously, my life is going to get off the tracks. Next circle is my spouse, Katrina, and then the next circle is my children, my 3 kids. Next circle is Pastor Kevin and Sherry. I also have 3 close brothers, Mike, Ryan, and Adam, that I've invited into my life for accountability. And then it just keeps stretching. And the closer you are to the center, the more time, the more of Mark you get.
Amen.
And because that helps me make better decisions on influence.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about that circle that had
Yes.
Mike, Ryan, and Adam
That's
in it.
right.
The last question I wanted to ask you, Mark, was in the journey of living as a spiritual son and walking that and sonship out in that context. You've encountered this relationship with your book club.
That's right.
And and so could you just tell everybody a little bit about that and how that looks as us as a Christian walking together with other brothers and sisters?
I realized that through COVID again, because relationships were strained, I needed to identify a few men that I trusted. So I reached out to those 3 men, and we started a book club, and we met about once a month. So it was a small start, but we ended up doing that for over 2 years and developing a brotherhood, a friendship. And the reason that means so much to me is because I'm not alone anymore. And I've given those men permission to say, is there any area of my life that doesn't reflect Jesus? I give you permission to address that. But they also just encourage me. Everybody needs a place where they belong and they can just let their hair down.
Right.
And that doesn't take long for me, as I said on Sunday, but when I go and hang out with my close friends, their peers, I go as a brother. I don't go as Pastor Mark, I go as Mark. And that's really important to have a place for me just to be myself.
Wow. Well, fantastic, Mark. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. If you weren't here on Sunday, I encourage you to watch it. A real close, intimate look into what it is to journey as a son and what are the benefits of processing life, processing discipleship as a son. Over the next number of weeks, we're going to be talking about this more and more. We're going to bring in some other sons to interview. But thank you so much for checking in with us today. We hope to see you on Sunday. God bless you.